In this video, let's learn how to crochet an invisible decrease stitch. You can use the stitch while making your crochet piece smaller. So to do an invisible decrease stitch, we need to stick our hook under the front loops of the next two stitches, the next two available horizontal V's. We need to put the hook under this one as well as this one here. So it should look like we've got 3 strands of yarn on the hook. Make sure the hook is in front of the working yarn. The tip of the hook is facing you. Now we're going to do a yarn over. Bring your hook below and behind that yarn, and pull that yarn through just the first 2 loops on the hook. So you should be left with 2 loops on the hook. Then yarn over again, bring the hook down below and behind the yarn, with the tip of the hook facing you, and then bring that yarn through both loops on the hook. So you are left with 1 loop on the hook, and you have finished your invisible decrease stitch. Now one more thing before you move on. A lot of times people are not sure where they need to put their hook next. So if you take a look at the rim of your piece, since we put our yarn through the front loops of a bunch of stitches, we know that the next time. That means that's the next stitch we want to put our hook into. So this strand of yarn, for example, is the front loop of one of the stitches that we had put the decrease stitch in. That's why it's being pulled by this mass of yarn that's near the hook. It's not what we would call a completely available horizontal V, because you can see that it has some yarn wrapped around it that's pulling at it. So the next spot that you would want to put your hook into after doing this invisible decrease stitch is over here. Okay, let's try it again. Put the hook under the front loops of the next 2 stitches to start a new and invisible decrease stitch. There are 3 strands of yarn on the hook. The hook is in front of the working yarn. The tip of the hook is facing you. Yarn over by bring your hook down below and behind the working yarn. Bring the yarn through just the first 2 loops. Yarn over again. Bring the yarn through both 2 loops on your hook. The invisible decrease stitch finished.